Does it look like I'm reading?
Hi
everyone! Hello!
Welcome to our Deaf Ed. Let us know if you're here. We're going to just wait a few minutes till you guys all come in.
Swipe in, let us know in the comments if you're here. Happy Friday, everyone!
Yeah, how fast has this week gone? It's literally flown by.
Flown.
Always get so shocked when it's Friday. It goes so fast.
I know, super excited for the weekend.
Yeah.
Monday starts, you blink your eyes, it's Friday again.
Always happens like that. Even this year has gone so fast. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, is anyone here? Oh, there we go.
Hey,
We got
Nicole.
Nicole. Some people swiping in. Let us know if you're here. So nice. Hi, Auntie Pat. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. How's everyone's Friday going?
Let us know how you're doing. Are you guys excited to learn something new this Friday?
Yeah,
hopefully we can
excited.
teach you something new today.
We're super excited to chat to you all. Oh, we've got a few more people swiping in here. Hi, Gabby. So nice.
Hey, Vilma, how you doing?
Yeah, how's everyone doing? So I think we're probably going to get started soon. We'll give it a few more seconds. Hi, everyone. Oh, everyone's swiping in. This is so nice. I have a full house on a Friday.
I'm excited.
So nice. There we go. We've got some more people swiping in. Okay, should we get started? Or should we wait a bit more?
Let's wait 2 more minutes.
Perfect. So how's everyone? Tell us how you're doing. Have you had a good week?
Who's excited for the weekend? Who's doing anything exciting this weekend?
Yeah, what's everyone up to? We're going camping.
Yeah, we're very excited. Going on a camping trip. Might be raining tonight and tomorrow morning. Not ideal, but it's okay. Packing warm.
Lots of blankies are going to be needed.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's get started. Henny, if you can just put up our slide for us, please. Okay, so me and Coach Mel are going to be talking about reading food labels and how to understand them a bit better. We know reading food labels can be super confusing, so we want to try and make it a bit easier for you to understand. So we've made a step-by-step guide, which you can use to try choose healthier food options. But just remember, this is just a guide.
Alrighty, so when we are looking at the nutrition or the product, what we want to do is we want to look at the ingredients list first. That's step number one.
Hold on, just before you go to the next slide, please. There we go.
I'm sorry. Okay, so first things first, we want to look at the ingredients list. So now the ingredients of the products are usually listed from what makes up the most of the product to the least of the product. So a good tip is always to scan and look at the first ingredients, as this usually makes up the largest part of what you're going to be eating. And you want to avoid products or limit your intake of it if salt, sugar, or fats is listed in the first 3 ingredients.
So we've put 2 examples here on the side. So if you look on the right, the first example is a nut bar. So you can see that the first ingredient is almonds, which makes up 35% of the product. And then it's sugar, water, orange peels, etc. So you can see that most of the product is almonds, but then the second ingredient is sugar. So sugar still makes up a large amount of this product. So that's why it's always good to look at the ingredients to see what your product is actually made up of. Whereas if we look at the second list of ingredients, it is a sandwich, which includes multi-seeded bread, and then your chicken, your avo, and mayonnaise. So it's always nice to see what's in your ingredient list, and always remember that the products are listed, whatever name is first, that makes up most of your ingredient, your product, and the last ingredient on the list makes up the least of your product.
All right, so you can go next. So I just want to mention that when we are checking the ingredients list, it's important to know that sugar, salt, and fat can have different names. So I just want to make you aware of this. It may not just be called sugar, salt, or fat. There are some different names for sugar, some different names for fats. You don't have to know them all off by heart. Just want to make you aware that there are different names to look out for. You're welcome to take a photo of this, or we can share it with you a little bit later.
Okay, next slide, please. So I see someone said their salt is their weakness. So don't worry, we're going to dive a little bit more into salt and all of that as well. So yeah, if any of you have questions, pop them in the comments and we'll get back to them at the end. But then the second step after you've looked at the ingredients is to check the nutritional label. So nutritional information, the nutritional information table always provides information about your energy and your nutrients in the product. So the key things that you need to look out for in the table is your energy, your protein, your carbs, which includes your sugar and your fiber, and then your fat and sodium. And sodium is your salt. And then just remember that these information is always represented in a per 100 grams or per 100 mils, and then also the recommended serving size.
Okay. So then also when you are looking at your nutritional label, we want to be careful of the serving size. When we are comparing different products, it's important to look at the per 100 grams or per 100 mils, as this is more accurate. Different products can have different serving sizes, so it's best to keep it consistent. Look at the per 100 grams or the per 100 mils. And then, if we are looking at the serving sizes, different products, you could be eating more or less than what you normally consume. So the serving size isn't always your recommended portion size. So for example, if a serving size of a cool drink could be half a can of cool drink, or chocolate, it could be half of the chocolate. But we all know that we're not only going to eat half of the chocolate. So manufacturers often try to trick us into thinking that the food has fewer calories or low in sugar. So just beware of the serving size, and remember that it's not always the recommended portion size.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, you can see that here we are comparing two products. So I'm just going to speak over it and just show you how you can compare two products. So we've taken two exact same products, both soy milk that are unsweetened, and we have to always compare looking per 100 grams. So they'll have per 100 grams and they'll have per serving. So you don't want to look at per serving because, like we said, the serving sizes will differ from product to product. So we always look per 100 grams of the product. So let's look at the soy milk in the green on the left. So in terms of energy, it has 137 calories compared to the one on the right. The organic soy milk has almost more than double the amount of calories. Then in terms of protein, they're pretty similar. Carbohydrates, in carbohydrates, the organic one has way more carbohydrates as well. And then also just another important thing to note is that when you are using plant-based milks or milk alternatives, we drink milk or dairy for calcium because it's an essential nutrient that we need. So it's always important to make sure that if you are using dairy alternatives or milk alternatives, that it is still fortified with calcium, because like I said, it's an essential nutrient that we all need. So if you can see the one on the left has calcium, I think it's 132 milligrams of calcium, whereas the one that's organic doesn't have any calcium fortified. It's not fortified at all. So it's always important to make sure that you're looking at that and comparing products. And that's why we always say look at per 100 and compare the products, and you can always, have a look and see how they differ.
All right. So Henny, if you can just go back one slide, please. So now we just want to look deeper into the different components on the nutritional label. So the first one that we always see is energy. And this is usually measured in calories, or in South Africa, it's usually represented as kilojoules. If you want to convert from calories to kilojoules, 1 calorie is 4.2 kilojoules. And when we are looking to lose weight, it's important to look at your overall energy intake, but it's also important to remember that energy is not the be all and end all. Some foods may be higher in energy, but they're more nutritious compared to other foods. So for example, if we had to compare nuts and sweets, nuts are really good for us. They're really high in fiber, high in vitamins, but it's also very energy dense compared to sweets. But this doesn't mean that we should avoid it or we shouldn't consume it. And this is why portion control is so important. We also need to remember that we need to make sure that we're also nourishing our bodies and not just focusing on the energy of food.
Okay, perfect. Now we're going to go to the next slide. So we've taken one more slide, please. So we've taken a picture of muesli, and we just want to kind of show you the nutritional label of this muesli. So as you can see, the serving size of this muesli is 30 grams, which is about 2 tablespoons. So, like we said, the serving size isn't always the amount that we'll have. We are all so different and we all require different amounts of foods. So let's say, for example, a male that's 80 kilograms and trying to build muscle, he might need a little bit more than 30 grams, and someone else might need a little less, or someone might need exactly 30 grams. So that's why it's always important to remember that the serving size isn't always the portion size that you should eat or would eat. And that's why it's always important to compare products per 100 grams when looking at the nutritional label.
Okay, next slide, please. So the next element normally on the label is your carbohydrates. And as we mentioned earlier, carbohydrates is divided into sugar and fiber. So we all know that sugar in small amounts in our diet is completely normal. It's part of a healthy diet, but most of us are consuming too much sugar, and this can lead to negative health consequences if we're consuming it in large amounts over a long period of time. Also, remember that sugar has many different names, as we discussed earlier, so just beware of that. And then when looking at the sugar content on the product. If we look at the per 100 grams, a product is considered to be high in sugar if it has more than 22.5 grams per 100 grams, and is considered to be low in sugar if it has less than 5 grams per 100 grams. So if we look at this example here of the two different yogurts, we have low-fat plain yogurt, and then we have our full cream flavored yogurt. When we are looking at the low-fat yogurt, if we look at the carbohydrate content, we see that the low-fat yogurt, the full cream yogurt, flavored yogurt, has more than double the amount of carbohydrates compared to the plain yogurt, and it also has more than double the amount of sugar compared to the plain yogurt. So it's always better to go for your plain low-fat options.
Okay, and then we're going to look at fiber. So the next slide, please. When we choose foods such as your cereals or breads or your carbohydrate containing foods, it's always so important to look at the fiber content. Fiber has so many benefits for us, and most of us aren't eating enough fiber. The recommended amount of fiber is to eat 25 grams of fiber per day. And like I said, most of us are not getting that, and that's why it's so important to always look at the fiber content. So a product is considered high fiber if it has more than 6 grams of fiber per 100 grams of product, or it has more than 3 grams of fiber per serving. So if we look at these two examples here, the honey and oat bread on the left has 3.7 grams of fiber per 100 grams. So it's a bit actually low in fiber. And you wouldn't think that because it's an oat-based bread, and it has 1.9 grams of fiber per serving. Whereas the seeded whole grain brown bread has 9.3 grams of fiber per 100 grams and 5.1 grams of fiber per serving. So it's much higher in fiber. So, when you are choosing your breads and your cereals, it's always important to look at the fiber and make sure that you're choosing these products that are high in fiber.
All right. And then I just want to touch on protein before we go to the next slide. So at Jeff, we base our nutrition plans on a very healthy, balanced diet. And this means getting enough protein at each of our meals. So protein helps us feel fuller for longer. And we also need protein because it plays a very important role in building and repairing all the cells in our body. Protein is best absorbed when we eat it evenly throughout the day. So this means spreading it out evenly at each meal, including it at each meal and in your snacks, instead of having it all at one meal. So to maximize the absorption, we want to make sure that we are spreading it out evenly and including protein at all our meals and snacks during the day. And then if we can just go to the next slide. Next, we want to look at fats. So we know that we have many different types of fats. We have our polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Then we also have our trans fats and our saturated fats. And we want to aim to have more poly and monounsaturated fats in our diet. And we want to reduce our consumption of our saturated and trans fats. So when we look at the fat content of a product per 100 gram, when looking at total fats, we want to aim to have more than 10 grams, less than 10 grams per 100 grams. And if we're looking at our milk and yogurt, we want to have less than 2 grams per 100 grams of our total fat. And then if we're looking at our saturated fat, we want to have less than 3 grams per 100 grams of saturated fat, or as little as possible, because we do want to limit our saturated fat intake. So if we look at this example here, we have low-fat milk and full cream milk. If we look at the total fat of the full cream milk, it has more than double the amount of fat compared to low-fat milk, and also saturated fat, it's got more than double the amount of saturated fat compared to the low-fat milk. And then I just want to point out, if we look at, the protein, the carbs, and the sugar of the low-fat and the full cream milk, there isn't really a difference there. So the only difference between the low-fat and full cream milk is that the full cream has more than double the amount of fat. So it's always best to rather go for our low-fat milk options.
And someone actually asked that in the comments, saying that fat-free yogurt does it have more sugar than plain low fat? And no, it doesn't usually. It doesn't. There's not really a huge difference. So that's why it's always important to rather look at the fat. The fat's the main difference in those. Okay, next slide. We are going to look at sodium, which is our salt. So many products have lots of added sodium in it, which you actually wouldn't even know. So even things like breads and stock powders and spices, all of those things have lots of added sodium in. And the recommendation is to have a maximum of 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. Because if we have a super high intake of sodium for a long period of time, it can lead to complications such as high blood pressure, which we don't want. So a product is considered low sodium if it has less than 120 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. And a product is considered high sodium if it has more than 600 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. So if we look at these two products, the one is Spice and the other one is Stock Cube. So the Spice, you can see, has over 21,000 milligrams of sodium, which is insane. And the Stock powder has over 13,000 milligrams of sodium. So, a high intake of sodium is so a product is high if it has more than 600 milligrams, and these have over 21,000. And, some people eat this every day. So it is something that we do need to consider and look at, and always, look at the sodium, because it is hidden very sneakily in a lot of foods. So we need to look out for that.
Okay, next slide, please. So now that we've covered all the information on how to read labels, let's just have a look at this example. So we have our sesame and oats rice cakes, which is claimed to be high in fiber. So if we look, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the first three ingredients of the product. We see that it's whole grain brown rice, white rice, and oats. So it's fine. Salt, sugar, and fats are not in the first three ingredients. So that means it's good. The product claims that it is high in dietary fiber. So then if we go look at the fiber contents of the product, if we look per 100 grams, we see that it has more than 6 grams per 100 grams, which means it is high in fiber. However, when we look at the per serving, we know that it should be more than 3 grams per 100 grams to be classified as high in fiber, but this product is just below. It's got 2 grams of fiber per 100 grams. So maybe not that high in fiber if you're looking at the per serving. And then if we look at some of the other components in the product, we see that it has 0 sugar, which means it's very low in sugar. Great. If we look at the total fat content, it has less than 10 grams per 100 grams. So it's low in total fats, also low in saturated fats, because it's got less than 3 grams per 100 grams. And then lastly, if we look at the sodium, it's very low in sodium. We know that if it's less than 120 milligrams per 100 grams, it's classified as low in sodium. And this only has 25 grams per 100 grams. So all in all, a good product. I hope you guys have learned something from that.
Approved.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to our last slide. So we've basically just drawn up a practical guide for you. Take a photo, or if you want us to send it to you, just let us know. So basically, we've made a guide with sugar, fat, saturated fat, and sodium, and we've listed the low amounts, the medium, and then the values of when it's high. So you should always choose products with less than 5 grams of sugar, less than 3 grams of fat, less than 1.5 grams of sodium, of saturated fat, and then 120 milligrams of sodium. So always choose those products. And then, if you are eating the ones that are high in either sugar, fats, saturated fats, or sodium, it's okay every now and again, but obviously we don't want to incorporate them in our everyday lifestyle. It's just a nice guide to use when you are looking at labels. So definitely take a photo, or if you want it, we can send it to you. But I hope you all enjoyed that. If you have any questions, let us know, or let us know if you learned something. We hope that you learned something.
We hope you learned something on this Friday.
Let
us know if you have any more questions in the comments. We can also go through the comments now and see if we can answer if you do have any questions. But thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Yeah, so nice to see you all on a Friday. So I see someone said here, I normally use plant-based milk, unsweetened. How is it different with low-fat milk? So I would say it depends on what your goal is. So if you are cutting out dairy milk because of ethical reasons, then that's perfectly fine. It's always just important, if you are using a plant-based milk, to make sure that it is fortified with calcium, like we spoke about. Because when we have our dairy products, the main essential nutrient that we get from there is our calcium, and which is really good for our bones, our teeth, has really, really benefits. So you need to make sure that your milk is fortified with calcium. So you go look at the nutritional label, you look for calcium. If it doesn't have the word calcium in it, it probably isn't fortified. And then make sure it has sufficient calcium. So look per serving, it must have more than 300 milligrams of calcium per serving. And then it's a good source of calcium.
Dietitian approved.
Any other questions that we missed?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Was there maybe one in the beginning, I think? No, I think we got all the questions. If you have any, you can always
send us a message. Yeah, more than welcome.
Yeah, always nice to hear from you guys. And I hope you guys have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.